And we are live at Petals in the Pines in Canterbury, New Hampshire. There is the egg. What comes next? The caterpillar, of course. What comes next? The chrysalis. And lastly comes the best part, the butterfly.
Welcome back. Part 3 of Monarch Festival, a virtual event. Let's head into the pavilion. Thank you for joining us again. That was a recreation of the ballet that we did at the first session. All right. Come on up to the table over here. I have put on my appropriate t-shirt for this event. This would be the life cycle of the monarch butterflies. This is quite a popular shirt. You see a lot of people with it, with the caterpillar and the chrysalis. And on the back, we have the adult. And if you're getting close, you should be able to tell if it's a male or a female. We taught that in the first session. 2 black dots mean it's a male. So anyway, what we're going to do now is talk about the life cycle of the monarch butterfly during this session. A couple things. If you're joining us, say hello. Let us know where you're watching us from. And also, Sharon Rask Huntington, who wrote the book Mirabelle's Metamorphosis. At the last session, we suggested you go watch that on our website. So she should be on the chat answering any questions that you have. Her book was all photographs of monarchs throughout the life cycle. So very appropriate book for this session. So what I want to do is start with this awesome poster that I have from Monarch Watch, and we're going to take you through the whole life cycle of a monarch butterfly. So Jesse, you can zoom in down here and just follow my finger as I describe the life cycle. We're going to start with the adult butterfly. So the adult female, after she mates with the male, she will go around and she can lay hundreds of eggs, but she only lays one at a time, and they are very little. And she typically lays them on the underside of the milkweed. And I have actually seen this happen. Saw a butterfly last year come out to the milkweed. She rested on the leaf really fast, and I could see her make a motion underneath the leaf, and she laid her egg. The first thing that the egg does after it's sat there for about 4 or 5 days, it will hatch, and the first thing it does is it eats its case. That's its first bit of nutrition. And then it will start eating the leaves. And if we move up here, you can see the small caterpillar, and as it gets bigger, it goes through 5 stages called instars. It actually eats so much food that it splits its skin 5 times, the last time being when it turns into a chrysalis. So it just eats and poops and eats and poops and eats and poops and keeps getting bigger and bigger. These pictures on the poster are actually way too big. Usually an adult adult caterpillar is about 2 inches long. So they're in this phase for about 10 days to 2 weeks. Then what they're going to do, they often leave the milkweed plant to go form the chrysalis. And the reason why they do that, if they were to stay on the milkweed and their buddies keep eating the plant, I have literally seen plants get eaten down to just the stalk, so there's nothing left. So if they form their chrysalis on the milkweed, their buddies could eat right around them to the point where they might fall to the ground. So they leave the plant, they go somewhere else. I have seen them go 8 to 10 feet away from the milkweed, and they'll be on some other plant. We see them often on houses, on window casings, on flower pots. You just never know where they're going to make a chrysalis. Oh, and good, we have the arrival of a butterfly. Jim, I'm going to have you take care of that. Sarah's here with a butterfly, so we'll get to that in a minute. This means we're going to have a butterfly to tag. Sarah, if you could just touch base with Jim real quick. Okay. And so what happens, if we could come back here, Jesse, to the chrysalis, or the J shape actually, this is what the caterpillar does right before it turns into a chrysalis. It goes to a location, forms this web, and it's really quite large. And then it attaches and forms a J shape. It will be like this for about 24 hours. And when you see the antenna go limp, you know that you're within about an hour of having that turn into a chrysalis. And what happens is in this phase right here, if you could zoom in on this, Jesse, this is when it is shedding its skin for the last time. So you can see this is the skin getting pushed up. That's it falling off. And what has happened is that there are discs that are in the caterpillar that are, what's the word I'm looking for, dormant during their lifetime. But when they become chrysalis, those imaginal discs, is what they're called, are activated. So what happens is the parts of the caterpillar that are spared would be the heart, the respiratory system, the abdominal muscles, and parts of the brain. The caterpillar juice fuels the development of the imaginal discs, so then you get things like the eyes and the antenna and the wings of the butterfly. So that's part of what's happening. It's a very mysterious thing that happens. If you catch it, get to see it actually happen. It's really amazing. I actually filmed one transforming in our garden last week, and that video appears elsewhere on my Petals in the Pines page if you go further down and search for that. So it takes about 5 minutes for it to go from here to here, and then it wiggles around. That's the skin falling off. And this part right here, the attachment between the web and the chrysalis, is called a cremaster. And that is how it is adhered to whatever it's attached to, and they are really clung on because people have asked, how come the wind doesn't blow them off or the rain doesn't knock them off? It's because they are very super attached by this method. They're going to smooth out and sit there for about 2 weeks. You can semi-see the lines of the wings in there. And then eventually you're going to start to see the butterfly wings, and it will go completely clear so you see the whole butterfly. And once that happens, you've got about a day between when it hatches from here to here. And this is called eclose. Somebody asked about that in the last session, and that's the word for when it hatches out. And when it hatches out, it's all crumpled up, but it actually kind of pumps up its wings, and it actually squirts some liquid out of its abdomen. You'll see that sometimes at the bottom of the cages. And it takes about 4 hours for the wings to dry. So how long ago did your butterfly hatch?
Half hour.
A half hour ago. Okay, so that means I probably won't tag it till the 3 o'clock session. Okay, but we'll talk about that,
Yeah.
okay? Because we want the butterfly to dry for about 4 hours before we tag them. And then, so what the butterfly does is it hangs there till it dries, and then it will fly off and get food. We've already mentioned before the difference between the male and the female. So that's a male, that's the female, and that's how you can tell the difference. I want to compare this just a little bit to just one other butterfly, because every butterfly, every moth has a different life cycle. The monarch is the one that we know that migrates. And there are others that live here in our harsh, cold winters, sometimes as a caterpillar, sometimes as a chrysalis, sometimes as a live butterfly. So I mentioned in the first segment, we talked about the black swallowtail, and they have two broods, what we would call, during the year. So in the spring, the butterflies hatch out of their chrysalis that they've been in all winter, and they go around, lay eggs. We get caterpillars, and they eat our dill and our parsley and things like that. And then they form into a chrysalis, and one of these will hatch in the summer, go through the life cycle again, but the ones that form the chrysalis in late summer, early fall will live outside in our gardens, on trees, on buildings, until next spring. So that's just an interesting example, and then this is what we'll see flying around in the spring. That's just an interesting example of a different type of butterfly and how they metamorphose. So I want to talk a little bit about rearing monarchs, because Over here we have two different tents, and I have the other style down here if you want to show that. I started with this smaller tent, the round one down there. That was the first one I got. That one's a lot harder if you want to tag a butterfly. It's hard to reach in there and tag them. These are really nice because what happens when they hatch, they'll usually hang from the top of the tent, and you can just zip open the top, reach your hand in, and place a tag on it. Something you need to be very aware of when you're raising monarchs, if you choose to do this, you really need to do your research, and we have links on the website about rearing monarchs, and I encourage you to really read a lot of materials about it before you do this. One thing that's super important is keeping your tents clean. So every day, it's like having a baby. You gotta clean up the poop, and you gotta feed them all the time. They're laughing, audience is laughing. So what happens is they basically eat, and they'll drop their poo all over the floor of the tent, and every day I would go and clean it out. What you're actually showing there, Jesse, those are from the last 3 chrysalis that turned, that's their skin. That's the last shedding of skin over there. So you have to do that every day. The other thing that we have to be concerned about is a parasite, and it has, oh, you got a question?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, hang on to that thought. Question, come on over here so we can hear it.
So this comes all the way from Boulder, Colorado.
Oh!
Merlin White asks, can the caterpillar skin be recovered, preserved, and presented?
Presented meaning?
Like on a board or...
I would say probably yes. Like if you're talking about pinning it, like a lot of times with insects, people might have a dead butterfly and they pin it. And I would think you could. It's super fragile. It's almost like ash that like if you rub it in your fingers, it could disintegrate. So, but I suppose if you pin it right away and don't touch it and shake it around a lot, you probably could. Okay? So we were talking about the parasite. The parasite has a very long name, and I'm usually good with scientific names. I can't pronounce this one very well, so it's been abbreviated OE for the very long name. So OE, parasite, you can look it up. And this parasite, if it's on the adult butterflies, say if we were to have an adult butterfly hatch out of one of these chrysalis and she was infected with the OE parasite, it can infect, if there are caterpillars down feeding underneath, it can infect the future caterpillars, which means those are going to turn into chrysalis with OE, and it'll just really make a mess. So it's really important to keep your tents clean. I clean them with bleach water every year when I'm done for the season. And also, what was my other thought? Oh yes, you don't want to have butterflies hatching over caterpillars. So I still have a young caterpillar in this tent over here, and if I see one of the chrysalis up there getting ready to hatch, I'm going to pull that caterpillar out just in case. And you will know, I mean, the best way to tell if you have OE is really to look under a microscope, and not everybody has a microscope to look. But if sometimes you'll get malformed butterflies, sometimes they'll turn black and they just don't hatch, and that means they're probably infected. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of OE in the Northeast. It's really bad down in the Florida area, but you just want to be aware of it. And so I just want people not to go into this and think, you know, oh, we're just going to have a bunch of caterpillars and milkweed and all will be fine. You really want to do your research, so please do that. So we're going to talk about the tagging. And I've been tagging for several years now for Monarch Watch. You get this lovely bright yellow envelope with everything you need. For $15, you get a series of 25 tags with a set of numbers on it. And what I need to do is complete my information as far as our location, where we live. And when I tag a butterfly, I put down the number from the tag and what day I'm tagging it. And then, is it male or female? And then, is it reared or wild? So if it's reared, it's something I had in a tent. If it's wild, it means I went out with my butterfly net and I caught one. And I tried since we were on at 10:30 this morning, but I couldn't find one to catch. And we put our location here. So I will fill all this information out as I tag in the fall. And we can now go to Monarch Watch and enter that data. So you folks who just brought a, where is it?
Over there. On the cardboard box.
Oh, it's on the cardboard box behind. Okay. If you want to carry that over here, Jesse. And we're just going to put it here and film it a little bit. But it's honestly, look at that, sweetie. And you've got 1, 2, 3 more chrysalis in there. Yeah. Nice. I really would like to, if I'm going to tag it, is it okay if I do it at 3 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So
I'm
we.
going to be at Canterbury Hall because I have to get to work.
Okay, so I can bring the net back to you afterwards. That would be super. So we'll film this at 3 because right now that butterfly's wings are too wet. Yeah, so we will film that later. So stay tuned for tagging. Tagging coming at 3, okay? What happens with the tagged butterflies, as these butterflies head south to Mexico, some of them might die along the way. And they may fall in somebody's yard, and if you were out and you pick up a butterfly and you see a tag on it, it actually says, it has on it, if I can read it, Monarch Watch, and it has mytag.org. So you would go to that website and you would let them know what number tag that you found. And then that way we know as taggers, where did our butterfly end up? In all the years I've been tagging, I've never had one found, but I'm still hopeful that one will be found. And the ones that make it to Mexico, what happens is the researchers go down in the winter, and several of the butterflies, you know, they hang on the oyamel trees down there in the winter, but when it's warm, they'll go out and fly and so on. And some will die and they'll fall to the forest ground, and the researchers gather those up. And of all the tagging that's done in the United States and southern Canada, very small percentage of them are found. And they are able to use this data to find out where these butterflies have come from. And they're finding that most of the ones they find are the ones that are tagged in the Midwest, and they find many fewer from the Northeast, which is probably why one of mine has never been found. But eventually maybe it will be found. So again, you can go to monarchwatch.org if you want to read more about tagging and order tags there. They're probably not, I don't know if they're still shipping them now because this is peak tagging time, and we just got an email from one of the organizations that said this migration is going to be quick, so be ready to tag, and it's going to happen fast. So that's the information about life cycle and tagging. I want to remind you that on the website we have 2 books being read by Carolyn Cutler-Hughes. Carolyn and I met at the Canterbury Fair a few years ago. She had a booth because she writes several children's books, but she was dressed like a monarch butterfly, and I happened to have a tent there at my display with some monarchs in there, and she came over to say hi wearing her monarch wings. It was really awesome. Anyway, she's written a couple books. One is called Flutterfly, and the moral of that story is love never ends, it only changes, and a butterfly is not an ant. So, and she's also the artist, so she does the writing and the artwork. So you can go check that and read those sometime today. And if you read them before 3 o'clock, you can come back and ask questions. And hopefully Sharon is on, taking any comments or questions from her book that we recommended in the last session. If people out there, I know schooling has changed quite a bit, and a lot of people are homeschooling or doing some homeschool activities in addition to their schooling. And I want to show you some materials here that I use a lot, and they're from Tanglewood Hollow. Allison is a mom of 2 kids. She homeschools her kids. She's an educator, and I use a lot of her materials from her website. Most of what she sells are digital downloads, so you don't get a physical thing in the mail. You get the download and you print them, and I print and laminate and use these materials in our Nature Explore Outdoor Classroom. You see that we have a few things that have to do with butterflies. I have the life cycle here of the monarch butterfly. We have insect cards so you can learn the parts. So you have one card that shows the body part and the name, and then you have matching cards so you find the proper card with the proper name. She has insects, she's got trees, she's got mammals, she's got mushrooms, she's got all kinds of really cool things. So I highly suggest you go to her website. It's there's a link to it from our Monarch Festival page, and she is having a sale on her Monarch curriculum, her butterfly curriculum, 50% off. and it goes through. She's holding it over to the end of the day tomorrow. So you want to be sure to check that out. Another fun item that we have, and I want to thank the Condi family and Hazinga family from Pennacook, and they're members of our 4-H club. They created this little Monarch Butterfly Lifecycle bracelet kit, and this is the bracelet right here. And I'll just quickly show you that we start with some milkweed. We have a white egg, more milkweed, we have a caterpillar, more milkweed, we have the chrysalis with the little gold bead, more milkweed, and then we have the butterfly. And these kits are available for $2. They come with all the materials, the beads and string and instructions. And there's a fun video on our website under kit activities to watch. And I'm just going to suggest, don't do what Lucas did. So you gotta watch it to the end to see what Lucas did. And don't do what Lucas did. It's kind of funny. I'm not picking on you, Lucas. A few websites that you want to check out: Monarch Joint Venture, all kinds of great kid activities there to learn about the life cycle. Journey North, they track the migration of not just the butterfly, but also hummingbirds and all kinds of other things. So if you see an egg or a butterfly or a caterpillar early in the season, when I see my first egg or my first caterpillar, I go on there and post it. It helps them to know where the butterflies are when. That's a really great website. And as usual, you can send us questions via chat, which I believe we have one now.
Yes. So Gail Blackmer from Florida
Hi, Gail.
writes, how long do the butterflies live?
Oh, so I was going to talk a little bit about that more in the next session, but I'll answer that now. Most butterflies don't have a very long life. They live about a month. But the butterfly, the monarch butterfly that is leaving here and going to Mexico will actually live about 7 months. So they're being born end of August into September, heading south. They spend the whole winter there. They don't start heading back north until March or April. And when they breed and lay their eggs, that's when they die. And honestly, that's what most moths and butterflies do. They are born, they eat, they breed, they lay eggs, and then they die. And the life cycle keeps continuing. So most of the monarchs that we see only live about a month and a half. And then the ones that leave here and go to Mexico live about 7 months. So that's a good question. And it varies for all. I know there's one moth that I learned about, it only lives a week. And it can't even eat. I was trying to figure out what it eats, and it doesn't even eat, and it just breeds and dies. They're all different. All right. We hope to have Carolyn on at 3 o'clock to take any questions about her 2 books. And also, if you support the work that we're doing here, and we'd like to support some other organizations, Monarch and Pollinator organizations, we'll be taking donations off our website. If you so choose to do that, we would appreciate it. So coming up at 3, we need you to prepare. We are going to Mexico, so we are going to talk about the migration. So what we want you to do, your assignment is, do you have a Mexican hat? Do you have maracas? Do you have a Mexican blanket? Anything to get in the mood, the Mexican mood, even if it's nachos and salsa. I don't care. So join us, and we're going to have a fun little dance party at the beginning. And we're not only going to talk about the monarch migration, but we're going to talk about the big picture. How can we help all insects in our own yards? There are things that we can do to help them out. So we're going to talk about that so everybody can make a difference. So we'll be back for our last segment at 3 to talk about the migration to Mexico. We'll see you then. Adios.